only place for everything Vikings. 6, 1, 2, Vikings.
Welcome back to 612 Vikings. I'm your host, Dustin, alongside Drew, as always. Drew, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good. We got Vikings training camps finally here. Only one thing that means is the preseason is around the corner. So, we're kind of getting to that countdown where we're going to have football around till the end of the year. So definitely exciting part of the year for sure.
Yeah, we got some exciting topics to talk about. We had the first day of public training camp practice. Say that 10 times fast. So we got some newsworthy things to talk about as well with that. We'll talk about Jordan Love's contract, what that kind of means for the NFC North, and then some interesting cornerback options that Drew has written down. He can kind of tell us a little bit about that as well. So let's get kind of rolling into this, and we'll start with the Jordan Love stuff because that's kind of been, I guess, the most recent stuff in order of what we're going to be talking about. So, yeah, Jordan Love, he signed a new record-breaking deal, the new highest-paid quarterback in the NFL. Does he really deserve that? I personally don't think so, and that's not me just being a Vikings fan. But anyway, I'll let Drew kind of take it away from here and kind of talk about the new contract for Mr. Jordan Love.
Yeah, I would say, he is now one of, or if not the highest paid quarterback now in the NFL. I would say definitely it's the Packers rolling the dice on him yet again. They gave him an extension last year where you didn't really know what you were going to get out of Jordan Love. Kind of had a Jekyll and Hyde season. First half was kind of going through his growing pains. Second half really turned it on, and it just seemed like the roster around Jordan Love really kind of stepped up with him. So like when Jordan Love's really, his numbers started getting better and he looked better, the roster also progressed with him. We saw a lot more of Jaden Reed going into that offense, kind of having more of like that Percy Harvin kind of flashbacks when I kind of watched the Packers, I would say. And then, Aaron Jones kind of got back. He was returning. He was healthy. And A.J. Dillon wasn't really on the field. I feel like a lot of Packers fans were, from what I've seen, we're definitely anti-A.J. Dillon. He kind of had a bad season last year. It's not what, he's capable of doing. But Aaron Jones really took over that backfield after having, 5 straight 100-yard games. He had that 100-yard game streak, and that carried over into the postseason. So it's still it's kind of like, you're kind of in that same spot last year, I feel like. I don't want to say he doesn't deserve an extension because he does. After the way, he won a playoff game, the first 7 seed to ever win an NFL playoff game in NFL history. So, that does speak to something.
Being the youngest team as well, too.
Yeah, with the youngest team, a lot of people, some people had the Packers finishing last in that division. I kind of feel like that's kind of where, similar where the Vikings are. This first year starting quarterback, potentially, a lot of people are kind of writing them off. Young team. So, there are some similarities there. But, with Jordan Love, I'd say it's, you're kind of back to square one. $55 million is not cheap. The QB market is definitely inflated. It wasn't that long ago we were kind of talking about Kirk Cousins at $28 million, with that being a lot of people thought that was highway robbery, the $28 million. So, and the fact that we're almost, I think we're more than double than that now, or around double, I would say. It's really crazy to see, but would I have paid him that much money? I would say no, just for the fact that it's the inconsistency still, because had he played like a full consistent season where, he was producing at that level, I would have been more comfortable giving him that. But $55 million is not cheap, and it's a long-term deal. So it's not like something where you can kind of get out of it very easily, like similar to the Kirk deal, where the Kirk deal, you can kind of get out of it in year 1, year 2. I don't really think you can do that with the Jordan Love contract. So they're committed to him, and some guys are definitely needing extensions too. Kenny Clark just got another big extension too. So I think it kind of goes to what's going to happen with Jair Alexander coming up soon, because he's going to need a contract extension soon. I think Rashawn Gary got his a couple of years ago. When his third deal kind of comes around, when he's in his late 20s, what are you kind of doing with him? So the Packers are definitely having to bank on, building up that roster essentially. And another one I guess could be Christian Watson too. What are they going to do with him? Are they going to let him walk after the Jordan Love deal? You know, and I know Jaden Reed's only in year 2, but it's not going to be that long until he's going to be paid again. You know, if he's playing at that level that he played last year, it's definitely something that needs to be talked about too. So, you know, I do think that there's going to be some points where they may have to lose some guys. So the key is going to be for them is just keep drafting talent around the, you know, Jordan Love and keep on winning, kind of similar to what the Kansas City Chiefs have done.
Yeah, and I think with the Packers, it's kind of like not picking your poison, but just kind of choosing who you want around that roster. You know, you're kind of building around Jordan Love, and then on defense, Kenny Clark, and you kind of have to build your offensive and defense off of that. Are you hoping that Jordan Love is that guy for years to come? And I think someone kind of phrased this, you know, the way I kind of thought of it too is with the contract that Jordan Love got, it's not what he really deserves by any means. It's kind of what the market is going to. And, you know, Baker Mayfield's going to get, you know, that type of contract, you know, next couple of years. You know, Baker Mayfield type guys, I should say. So it's just kind of how the contract extensions work nowadays in that second contract realm, I guess. And, you know, you just got to kind of build off of that offense and defensive cornerstone pieces. Like I said, Jordan Love on offense and Kenny Clark on defense. So it'll be definitely interesting to see what the Packers do on both sides of the ball. If they want to keep that young team and, you know, keep Watson around or Dobbs or Jaden Reed or whoever they have catching the ball from Jordan Love, it'll be definitely interesting. So
and you can't really forget their O-line play too. You know, Elgin Jenkins is paid, and Zach Tom, I believe he's looking for a new deal too. You know, he's definitely on a cheap deal. So, I mean, those are two guys that are definitely going to be looking for contract extensions somewhat in the near future for sure. What are you going to do with, you know, how are you going to protect Jordan Love? You know, is it going to be something similar to Cincinnati where, you know, Joe Burrow got paid. Now they're starting to lose some players. You know, T. Higgins got franchise tag, but it's not looking like there's really a future there. You know, Tyler Boyd just left, and, you know, Trey Hendrickson, he's demanding a trade. You know, that's kind of been something that people forget about from earlier in the offseason. And they just lost Joe Mixon, their running back. So it is something that, you know, we as Vikings fans know when you pay your quarterback, you know, you're going to start seeing some guys, you know, start to walk away, go to different teams. And, you know, we've seen that from everywhere. I mean, it's not only just, you know, Cincinnati. You get that with, you know, the Kansas City Chiefs. They just had to trade L'Jarius Sneed away. You know, he just
can't pay everybody. Yeah,
you can't pay everybody. That's right. You know, and it kind of goes to the Lions, too, a little bit. You know, they just gave Jared Goff that much money. They gave all that money to Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown, you know, and, you know, Aiden Hutchinson's going to be getting a new deal soon after this season. You know, he's going to be eligible for an extension. So how are you going to pay him after paying those other guys? And edge rushers aren't cheap, you know. I mean, they're looking at the market of $30+ million too. So, I mean, it's. I mean, we'll just have to see how this thing kind of plays out. You know, you stay good by drafting good. You know, and the Chiefs have definitely been the team that everyone's kind of trying to model after, but. You know, and they're the team that's been drafting consistently well. You know, even after Mahomes got his extension, you know, they go and they get guys like Creed Humphrey and then Trey Smith in the 6th round to protect him after the Super Bowl blunder against Tampa. Then they go and they find L'Jarius Sneed in the 3rd round, like these late round guys, and they just develop them. So, I mean, that's really the key. You know, how well can these NFC North rivals keep on drafting? So, that's definitely something we'll have to see.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Jared Goff was one of the first kind of quarterback contract extensions that we've had in this calendar year, pretty sure. So with that shaping in the NFC North, you know, you had Jared Goff, and then obviously the Vikings and the Bears, they drafted rookie quarterbacks, and then you paid Jordan Love this. So having 2 quarterbacks on a rookie contract, you know, you're kind of hoping that they pan out with JJ McCarthy, and for the Bears, Caleb Williams. So they're going to have, you know, very hefty contracts if they do pan out, if they do get a second contract with their respective teams. So with the Bears, they're kind of building, you know, a good roster with, you know, a young quarterback on a cheap deal, a lot of guys on a cheap deal, you know, really not paying too many guys on really expensive deals, I should say. And then the Vikings, you know, they're kind of using that same model as well, where you're not paying the quarterback the most amount of money. You just pay Jefferson, but he's a guy that will help you win games. He's not going to win you games by himself, but he'll definitely help you win. And we kind of looked at last year where it didn't really matter what quarterback was throwing to him. He's going to still put up at least 100 yards a game, and, maybe a touchdown or two as well. But it's definitely who you do pay in your offense and defense and just your team in general. You're kind of looking at examples like with the Cowboys. They have Dak, CD, and Micah Parsons to all pay, and at least one or two of them are going to walk in, free agency. And that's not what the Cowboys want by any means, but it's just reality. And you can't pay, like I said earlier, you can't pay everybody on your team as much as you want to. So, yeah, it'll definitely be interesting for what the NFC North will kind of be shaping out to be, because I think every single team in the NFC North is younger. I don't know how much younger, but it's kind of trending to be a younger division, I'll say. So we'll see how that looks in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right. So, kind of getting the Jordan Love extension out of the way. We're kind of transitioning now to training camp. Saturday was the first day for public to be there. And as you guys know, I was there filming some videos and stuff too. So, we'll kind of talk about kind of the key points at training camp. JJ McCarthy, he was looking really good. And Sam Darnold kind of was struggling a little bit. Not something that you want to see on the first day of camp. But, I had a couple videos of JJ McCarthy throwing some really accurate touchdowns, some great plays, great throws, and great catches by the receivers as well. And then Sam Darnold kind of struggling, wasn't the best day for him. He did have the one throw. I think it was maybe like 40 some yards to Jordan Addison down the left sideline. So that was really cool to see. I had that one on video as well. Jaquelin Roy was actually pretty disruptive too, hoping that he can get a big step this next year as well, because we're definitely going to need that in that interior defensive line. You have Harrison Phillips, and then that's pretty much it for your interior. That's really a disruptive force in that room. So Jonathan Grenard was very disruptive. Dallas Turner was everywhere on that field as well. You could just tell that he was blowing up plays left and right. And I get that it's just unpadded practice, but you can still feel that palpable presence. It doesn't even have to be palpable either, but just kind of blowing up plays left and right, which was really promising to see that both first-round rookies were doing really good. Jalen Naylor is having a very strong mini camp as well, or training camp. And then Will Reichard, Drew's favorite player right now. He looked really good too. And just kind of seeing him in person, kicking, I think it was like 5 to 10, field goals, kind of backing up each time. It's been a while since, the Vikings have had a really good kicker. And I'll be the first to say, I feel really confident in Will Reichard. I feel like there is something there, and it's definitely different than rookie Blair Walsh and Daniel Carlson, where he kind of flipped his career around. But Will Reichard, I feel really good about him. And, just from training camp, we'll have to see him in live games with Rush and all that. But what have you kind of noticed, Drew, through, I guess, the Twitter summaries of other people as well? And who are you kind of excited to see?
Well, everyone's, been kind of going around with the JJ McCarthy hype. There's a throw to Jalen Naylor in the back corner of the end zone that everyone's kind of hyping up right now. It was on the Vikings YouTube channel. Kind of fit into a tight window. Jalen Naylor goes up and grabs the very pretty ball from McCarthy, and it's Jalen Naylor. He's not the one of the tallest receivers, but made himself big and put his hands out there and brought it in, dragged the foot down, and got the touchdown. So he had it was about 3 or 4 touchdowns on 5 red zone opportunities, and pretty much all of them were completions. So he's definitely showing what he's got, and it is something that you kind of did see at Michigan. He's willing to take the smart throw. He's not forcing the ball deep and looking, he'll look for the big play when needed, but he's not forcing the ball deep when it's not there, which is something that, tends to be a little bit of a struggle when you see, the quarterbacks transition to the NFL as they try to make the big play right away, try to make a name for themselves. Yep. So it is there's nothing wrong with taking the smart throw. You know, Aaron Rodgers was the guy that lived off of taking the smart throw. So, and I mean, and he's what, a 4-time MVP, 3-time MVP. So he's, you know, just that's the biggest thing that I'm looking for, I guess, when I'm watching the highlights of his film, you know, with the Vikings in camp. And I'm sure that's, you know, I don't want to speak for Dustin, but, you know, that's definitely something that, you know, if I was there with him, that's something I would definitely be on the lookout for. But the guy that I'm definitely most excited for is, you know, Dustin just said, was Will Reichard. You know, for me, I kind of look back at what the moments of Viking kicking history has kind of been the downfall of. So we got to go back to the notorious Gary Anderson, you know, the put away field goal, send them to the Super Bowl and misses it wide left. Blair Walsh misses it wide left for the Seattle Seahawks to essentially win the game too. So the thing I like about him is, you know, it's more to me than just being the highest scoring player in NCAA history, but it's the pedigree of being from a blue chip program like Bama. He's been in those big games. He's had those game winning field goals when he needed them in those big games, like, you know, in the college football playoff game. So he's been around the block. He's made those big kicks. You know, he knows what it's like to win and drill the game winning kicks to win those games, you know, for Nick Saban. So that's a big reason why I'm a big fan of him, because it's something that we really didn't get out of Daniel Carlson a lot. You know, he did come from an SEC school at Auburn, but it's not really those, you know, big games. You know, the lights are on you, all the cameras are on you. It's a little bit different than that. And then, you know, kind of go back to Blair Walsh. You know, it was Georgia before Georgia was now. You know, they were a solid team, weren't the greatest team, but they were a team that would, you know, be ranked consistently. But, you know, and I think that's kind of what separates me from Will Reichard from our previous two, you know, kickers within the last 5 years. You know, guys like Dan Bailey and all that. You know, those younger kickers we have drafted. So, but yeah, like that's the big thing I'm looking for. And I did just see that Will Reichard did sign. Well, in college they call it NIL, but he now has a deal with Walmart. So
Walmart.
So my thing that I'm kind of kicking myself over is why it took Walmart so long to sign somebody from the Vikings when Kirk Cousins was right down this. You know, he was basically right there. So
I know
how much of a marketing dream that would have been. So, but you know, congrats to him, and you know, a lot of money going around for the Vikings nowadays. So.
Yeah, and one thing on McCarthy too is a lot of people were saying, you know, he can't throw to his left. All 3 or 4 of his touchdowns were all to his left, so that's definitely a plus to see. I know a lot of people were looking at, you know, the coaching staff saying, McCarthy, I want your left foot forward, and he definitely had his left foot forward in shotgun. And I guess Sam Darnold was okay in the red zone. He did throw the interception to Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith still has it. It looks like he's still running around pretty fresh. That's, you know, very rejuvenating to see as well. So, yeah, other than that, those were really the main key points to, I guess, everything that happened in training camp. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a big day. I think Monday or tomorrow, by the time you guys see this, will be the first time in pads, I believe. So, hopefully I can attend that as well for, I guess, a couple hours and get a couple videos as well. And then yeah, we'll see how that goes. Speaking of videos too, I guess I was caught red-handed for recording videos of practice and posting them. And I guess they have signs all over saying, you know, you're not supposed to record and post videos. I personally did not see any this year. I know they had some the previous years. I just didn't see any this year. So, not that I thought it was okay by any means, but I don't know. I'll have to maneuver my way around that and record maybe just 7-on-7s or just pre-practice stuff. I know a lot of people on Twitter were kind of either giving grief or on my side about everything too, you know, where it's a public training camp, anybody can film. You know, you have 15,000 people there, you know, there's going to be more than one person filming a practice and posting it online. That's just what people do. Yeah, you can't stop them, but it's just kind of like a courtesy, like, hey, it's a competitive advantage for us. You know, other teams could be scouting this. And I don't know, I guess my rebuttal would be everybody has access to film. I guess not everybody has access to like Titans training camp film or anything, but that's what preseason and the regular season is for. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting how all that kind of transpired, and everybody was kind of using my videos as well, which was kind of cool because I was the only one really posting stuff. So that kind of. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, you said earlier the teams had access to it. It's like, I feel like the NFL does send some fall guy. I know we were talking about it earlier, some fall guy where if they get caught, they fire him. But NFL teams are definitely sending guys undercover into the training camp, taking notes, seeing what they see, like some scouts or something. Then they're giving it back to their team. So, it's one of those things, like, you're just trying to be respectful, and I get that. But teams have access to it, and like they're going to be there because it is a public. You're outside; it's gonna be public. So, teams are just, even though it might be against the rules, but there's some sort of Connor Stallions guy, I guarantee you, at that training camp, wherever. So I don't know. It just seems like it is kind of a little bit of a overkill, and especially for something that's not really, I don't feel is necessary, but it is something that, we have seen previously, even before Kevin O'Connell came. It was something that, Sean McVay has definitely carried over in LA as well. So I think that's kind of where that, mindset kind of comes from, is, when he was under the tutelage of McVay and got the job. So I don't know, that's kind of like my 2 cents on it. But
yeah, I guess you live and you learn. It is what it is. Like I said, I'll have to find ways around it. Just record a 7-on-7 or whatever. red zone drills, whatever. Something that doesn't involve the whole team practice, or just post as much, whatever the case may be. So I don't know. Kind of looking back at it, it is what it is. So, and then I guess we'll kind of talk about our last point here, and kind of to transition into that a little easier is when Sam Darnold threw that dot to Jordan Addison down the left sideline. Andrew Booth was covering him, and Andrew Booth, I think, was on the second team. I don't think he took any first team snaps. So we're going to have to talk about the Vikings cornerback options. Who is all out there for the Vikings to sign? Because we are very thin at corner with, the tragic passing of Kyrie Jackson, RIP. And then you have Duke Shelley coming in, just as a body. Mekhi Blackman tearing his ACL. Shaq Griffin's kind of having some wear and tear. He's out for a couple days, might be a week or two. So who are some options that the Vikings could look at for that cornerback room, Drew?
I think the 2 biggest names people have been kind of, well, I should say 2, but the biggest name for sure is definitely Xavier Howard. I know that's a lot of Viking fans are posting about him. I think that's kind of the big name that, the elephant in the room there, just because of his previous work with Brian Flores, having all those, being that ball hawking corner where he had like 7-8 interceptions in a season. It's definitely something to take note of. He is getting up there in age, unfortunately. He's, I think, 31, so you kind of start seeing maybe a little bit of a regression. I think we've kind of already seen a little bit. He's not the same prime Xavier Howard we once saw from a couple of years ago, but it is a name to definitely take note of. And that has that Brian Flores connection as well. And then the other one being Stephon Gilmore. He does have a connection with Brian Flores too, dating back to New England, where he was Defensive Player of the Year. Unfortunately, he's also another guy getting up in age. Just coming off of Dallas, he was fine. He wasn't. He was definitely a guy who isn't an elite corner, but he wasn't the worst corner. I think the technique is there, upstairs in the head. I think he's a guy that knows what he's doing, but I just think you're just starting to see the body not be what it once was anymore. And I think you really kind of saw that against Seattle.
It's not translating.
Yeah, it's just, you kind of saw DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett kind of have their way with them, and that was a primetime game that was nationally televised. And I think a lot of Cowboy fans are kind of wanting to get rid of them. But I think part of that might also be because of Trayvon Diggs coming back with Deron Bland, so there really wasn't a spot for Gilmore anymore. But I think that's a guy you could give a 1-year deal to. But another guy could be a Dory Jackson. He's a former Giant, so could come in handy week 1 if you're wanting to get some insider information that way. But that's, if you want to go the youngest route, that'd be your youngest corner available out of the top guys available. But some guys that we could see a reunion with, another older guy would be Pat Pete, at 33, 34 years old. Not the same Pat Pete he was. I think the 2022 season was the best we ever were going to get out of Pat Pete. But he is a veteran guy. He can kind of guide those younger defensemen. After getting rid of Kirk, getting rid of Daniil, we have a very young roster. So he's a guy that could help be a little bit more of a mentor in the locker room. And then another guy, if you're looking at more of the slot, because Mekhi Blackman is a guy that can play outside and inside as well, along with Byron Murphy. But if you're looking at more of a slot option, Shannon Sullivan is a guy that's still out there. I do think he's probably one of the best slot corners out there right now. He's not an elite option, but he's solid enough where, he's been around the facility. He knows his teammates, has that chemistry. So that would be the younger side of the coin as well if you wanted to go that route. But I think the other one could be a potential trade. I think that's something that we can't rule out either. There's been a lot
Place he likes to trade.
Yeah, he does. That is something for sure that he likes to do. But if you wanted to go with, balls to the wall option, if you want to just say F them picks like the LA Rams did with, Kevin O'Connell's definitely familiar with that mantra as well. So an F them picks option could be Pat Surtain. You have the first round pick that you kept by drafting a JJ McCarthy over Drake May. You have your first rounder next year and the year after. So that's another guy you could definitely sign. You can give up maybe, my guess would probably be about 2 firsts and a second next year. Is something I would probably be a starting offer to if you wanted to go young, where you have the cap space where you can extend them and you get your CB1 for the long time, and you kind of figure out, what you're doing with Andrew Booth and guys falling down the depth chart. But in-house options could be Dwight McLaughlin. I think this is a guy. I think that's an option too that a lot of people aren't really valuing. Is maybe this is a guy who our UDFA has to step up and be a guy that could, he could be the outside option. He's a guy that went to Arkansas. He's a ball hawking guy. He's you can find he's got a nose for the football. So you can't have a second Ivan Pace without giving him the chance. So that could definitely be another option if you're looking in-house. So
yeah. Now let me ask you this. So with training camp, I guess preseason cutdowns too, I think Andrew Booth might be a guy that could potentially get cut and make your cornerback room even thinner. But I don't know if the Vikings will even go that route because of how thin everything is, unless they do sign, what's the word I want to use? Kind of, I don't even know what they even call him, but I guess a well-known corner, stability, a guy that has, been there, done that, like Xavier Howard or Stephon Gilmore, someone like that. Is there maybe somebody or somebodies or multiple people that the Vikings could sign 2 quality corners to kind of fill that void? Or do you think it'll just be like a one-time, a big signing deal?
I think it'll probably be a one-time signing thing. I think you're trying to preserve your cap as much as possible because it's been pretty well known. The Vikings are trying to go all in this next March. There's a big name corner out there still remains unsigned, and I think there's a good chance he could be available. Is AJ Terrell, younger corner, would be on a second contract. They just paid Kirk. I think that's a guy you kind of have to look at. You can also look at your interior. I think Grady Jarrett could be an option. He is in his early 30s, but he's definitely a guy that could be a plug-and-play option and a win-now guy for sure. And the interior is a guy that can be, you can kind of play well into your, 32, 33 years of age. So I don't see how they keep both, but I think that's an option for sure. There's also Micah Parsons in a couple of years if you wanted to, maybe one of these guys, if you want more depth on the edge, you can kind of move Grenard to be, maybe more of a 3-tech. He's got the body for it. Van Ginkel can kind of play stand-up linebacker from time to time. That's another option if you wanted an X factor, especially on the inside. But I would say definitely for sure it's going to probably be one guy. I would be pretty floored if it was more than one. But, if we do get more than one, we'll see how it goes. And I think it would just show, speak volumes to how well they're trying to compete this year for sure.
I just hope it wouldn't be like a Cameron Dantzler type player where, it is just kind of a shaky player where, is very inconsistent. He had times where Cameron Dantzler looked pretty good. And then there was times that, he just kind of got exposed, whether that was blown coverage or whatever it was. So I don't know. Hopefully it's, a good quality guy. I don't know if it's a guy like Gilmore where he's 34 years old, a couple of years or a year or two, maybe he's retiring. And then, a guy like Xavier Howard, I've heard rumors that he doesn't even like Brian Flores. So if those rumors are even true, we don't know. But no, I would like to see Xavier Howard, where even though he is up there in age, like early 30s, is he? Like
Yeah.
31, 32, something like that?
I think he's 31, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's not terribly old, but still up there in age. Someone that can help these younger guys as well. So yeah, we'll see what the Vikings do. I think if anything happens, it'll be within the next week or two, something before I think preseason starts. Just so they can get some experience under their belt, and in case of an injury happens, they have plenty of corners as well. So yeah, we'll see what the Vikings do in the next coming weeks. And Drew, if you have anything to add, we can add it here. Otherwise, we'll sign off for the night.
Yeah, I think right now it's kind of in a weird time. You're kind of put in this pickle, but I think a little bit they're kind of dropping some hints to what they're kind of looking in the draft next year. If they do end up taking the free agent option, I think corner's probably the route they're going to go. And if they're a team, like if the experts are predicting we're picking top 10 next year, but if we are, we're definitely getting a very good corner, getting a blue chip corner. So we'll see. I mean, corner's definitely one that can definitely hit pretty easily in the first round, especially in the top 10. So I'll definitely be excited for that. It's always exciting seeing new players come in, but like I said, I think a lot of people are just excited for JJ, and hopefully it's weird. It's like you want him to start, but you also want to be patient at the same time. But
gotta find that happy medium.
Yeah, you're trying to find that happy medium, exactly. But it's kind of weird, and we'll see how Darnold does. And I think if Darnold continues to struggle like you're saying he is, I think it's kind of obvious who should be the starter week 1 to put you in the best position possible to win. But if he does start week 1, it gets really interesting for Rookie of the Year, because the Vikings have 2 very good rookies that could maybe have a clean sweep, which we haven't really seen since the Jets did it with Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, and kind of before that with Marshawn Lattimore, Alvin Kamara. So it'd definitely be an interesting option. So we'll see. I mean, that is something that would be the cherry on top, where you definitely it says we're here to try to compete for a Super Bowl, especially if it's at the quarterback position. So definitely an exciting future for the Vikings.
Yeah, they can only, like we've said before, they're trying to replicate kind of like what the Texans did last year with CJ Stroud and Will Anderson. That's only if JJ McCarthy even gets to play this year, or even majority of the year. So we'll see. If Sam Darnold struggles, then maybe we'll see JJ McCarthy early, because he's looked pretty good in camp so far. That's JJ McCarthy. So yeah, things could get pretty interesting these next couple of weeks, even going into the preseason as well. And we'll talk a lot more about preseason, scenarios as well. So once we get closer to that, and just so you guys know in the future as well, me, Drew, and Nick, that has also been on the show as well, we are all going to the Vikings and Cleveland Brown preseason game. So I don't know if we'll be able to get a episode out within those couple of days, but if we do, we'll be in the same space, and we'll try to get an episode out if we do get time. So if we don't, you guys know where we are that week. So yeah, other than that, that's all that we have for you guys today. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you guys leave a like over on YouTube. Give us a good subscribe down at the bottom. Follow us on Twitter at 612 Vikings, and then on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, 612 Vikings. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Skol Vikes.